All right, guys. Hey, welcome back. Today we're doing a live stream with my good friend Erich Pratt from Gun Owners of America. And before we get started with today's video, I just want to thank our friends over at Big Daddy Unlimited for helping to support the Military Arms channel. If you guys would like to check out some great deals on prices and things like that, you can do that for just 99 cents. And you can find them at BigDaddyUnlimited.com. Also, guys, if you would be so kind, please like, share, and subscribe to our videos. A surprisingly small number of you guys that watch our videos actually take the time to click that subscribe button. So give it a click, and also be sure to comment down below because it does help us with the algorithms. With all that out of the way, Erich, how are you, my friend?
Doing great. Tim, it's wonderful to be back with you. Thanks so much for having me.
It's always good to chat with you. I know that we spoke a couple of days ago when we were talking about setting up the live stream, and we were talking about some of the topics of discussion. And of course, a lot has changed since the last time that we had a State of the Second live stream together. Obviously, politically, things have changed quite a bit in Washington, D.C. There's been a lot of discussion about Biden's gun control plans that were made public on his, campaign website. It's not speculation. He posted pretty much what he believed he would like to accomplish, at least in the first 4 years of his administration, assuming he doesn't get a second term. So, there's a lot of concern out there, but also there's a lot of information I think it's important to share with folks, things from the filibuster, and then talking a little bit about some of the ideas that were shared on Biden's website and where you think that might go. At least let's take a look at 2021, and we'll worry about the next 3 years as they come. So go ahead and kick it off. Let's talk about that filibuster first of all.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you're absolutely right. If Biden were to get everything he has on that website, that would truly be the end of the world. So the filibuster, this is so key. I mean, this is our final fortress. It's like the last stand of the 300s at Thermopylae. Yeah. Seriously, if we lose the filibuster, it really is all over, and we'll be facing everything that's on that Joe Biden website. But the filibuster is huge because it is the tool that we have used over and over and over again over the years to defeat gun control legislation. In fact, you may remember back in 2013, we were able to kill every single one of Obama's gun control agenda items, and the New York Times credited GOA as being the one that spearheaded that and killed it. And the reason we were able to do that is basically two things. One, we mobilized the grassroots very effectively. But the second thing was we worked with senators to filibuster, the universal background checks and all the other things that Obama wanted. Now, let me just pause because, I know you've got a smart audience, but even we have some of our members and activists, and they'll post on, when we talk about this, they'll say things like, can you just remind me what's the filibuster again? And, it's been a long time since government class. So, most legislation obviously has to pass with 51% majority. But in the Senate, there's this additional hurdle. And I'll just put it in layman's terms. I mean, if I had a legislative geek in here, they'd be talking about invoking cloture and all that. But basically, a senator can force a filibuster, and the way to stop it and to bring it to a halt is to get 60 votes, 60 out of the 100. So it's a higher threshold, but that threshold between 51 votes and 60 votes is huge. I mean, that's that no man's land where we were able to kill all that gun control legislation because they might have 53 votes or 56 votes, but they couldn't get to 60 votes. So it's absolutely huge. If now that the Democrats hold the keys in the Senate, if they were to say we're getting rid of the filibuster, it would mean they could ram through all kinds of gun control. It would mean they could pack the Supreme Court and the courts so that everything they pass is legal. Yeah. And maybe even more fundamentally, they could change the system of government so that anti-gun Democrats would permanently be in power. And it would be through tricks like getting statehood for D.C. and Puerto Rico, outlawing voter ID, outlawing limits on mail-in ballots. I mean, all the things that basically benefit one-party rule. They would be able to ram all that through, and it would be very, very difficult to ever get a pro-gun majority again.
So that's one thing I think that's really interesting, and I think it's key to this conversation. First of all, guys, some of the stuff that we're going to share with you this afternoon, or I should say this evening, isn't all doom and gloom. There's a lot of folks out there that are saying, it's the end of the world and things aren't ideal, right? But it's not all doom and gloom. And what Eric's talking about with regards to the filibuster, this is something that's being debated right now between Chuck Schumer and Mitch McConnell. And it's important that you reach out to your senators and to your representatives and let them know that you do want them to walk away from the negotiation table with the filibuster intact. Because what we've seen with the anti-gun forces, basically, I don't like to talk about Democrat versus Republican. There's crossover there in terms of our Second Amendment rights. I try to look at things pro-gun versus anti-gun. The anti-gun forces in Congress right now do have the upper hand. They have the thinnest of majorities in both chambers. And if there's no filibuster, we've seen with, say, the second impeachment of Trump, how quickly they've moved this through the House and put it into the Senate. Well, the same thing could happen without a filibuster, just one national tragedy away from them capitalizing on that fear and anger and concern. They could quickly move something through the House and the Senate and put it on the desk of President Biden for his signature. So it's absolutely critical that for our long-term strategy over the next few years, that we make sure our representatives have that option of the filibuster. So again, please reach out to your representatives and let them know that you strongly feel that it's important that in their negotiations they do whatever necessary within reason to walk away from that negotiation table with the filibuster.
So let me just add, and this just to bolster everything you just said, Tim, and I think this highlights the fact that there is, you do see party members crossing over. At the top of our website at gunowners.org, we have an alert there for people where they can take action on this and encourage their two senators to stand strong on the filibuster, to not support any limitations or the elimination of the filibuster. And it's going gangbusters. I mean, people have sent tens of thousands of emails already to their legislators, and it's having a good effect. I mean, obviously, every Republican senator has a vested interest in hanging on to the filibuster because they're the party in the minority. But we're seeing even Democrats, they're hearing from their constituents, and so far they're coming forward and they're saying we're not going to support a limitation of the filibuster. So that's very encouraging. I mean, see, the media is pushing really hard along with Schumer. Schumer, by the way, as you might imagine, wants to either get rid of it or limit the filibuster. The media is pressing for this. I mean, because they work hand in glove. And so we've got to counter that pressure. And that's what Gun Owners of America does. We counter that pressure by getting tens of thousands of people contacting their senators, and that makes a huge impact. Again, that's how we killed gun control, Obama's gun control, which greatly frustrated him. If you remember, he said the biggest frustration of his 8 years was not passing gun control.
Yep.
And we were able to do it by mobilizing the grassroots and using the filibuster. So we've got to hang on to that. But so again, go to gunowners.org. There we have an alert. We give you pre-written language. You can change it up if you want to. But just the fact that you're communicating with your senators tells them, it tells them I'm hearing from a lot of people in my state. They want me to vote to support this. And by golly, I'm going to do it. And they're sending that message to Schumer. So that's very encouraging so far.
Yeah. So, guys, it's important to stress here that, if you take a look at what was done, probably one of the most frustrating things I've seen said online is that, there's nobody in D.C. coming for your guns. And that's simply not true. And they'll say, well, under Obama, there was no gun control to speak of, so it's just not true. Nobody's coming for your guns. And what you just said a moment ago is that there was, in fact, a big push for gun control during the 2 terms of Obama and before in other presidents. It's not just Obama, but those were frustrated by the fact that people were politically active. and the filibuster was intact and things like that. So don't sit back and think that nobody's coming for your guns. The truth of the matter is that both parties pose a threat to some degree or another, and we have to be politically active and make our voices heard, and that is quite effective. Another frustrating thing that I hear people say quite often is that our voices don't matter. I've seen that in the chat already. It doesn't matter. Nobody cares. It just, I'm not going to do anything because it doesn't matter. That is exactly how we lose our rights.
That's right.
You cannot have that defeatist attitude. It's simply not true. We've demonstrated time and time again, just here on the Military Arms Channel and conversations we've had with you, that our voices do matter and that we can affect change even when we stand against a stronger enemy. And that is the case right now. Right now, the anti-gun forces in D.C. are stronger, and they do pose a threat. But we still have the ability to counter that threat, especially if we make sure that we have that filibuster intact. Now, that's the other thing. Let's talk a little bit about people are circulating various bills that have been introduced, and there was the Sheila Jackson Lee representative. Can you tell us a little bit about Sheila Jackson Lee, her history of introducing various gun laws, and how that's played out in the past?
Yeah, she's a representative from the Houston area. She's a Democrat representative, extremely anti-gun. I've been at this job, not in this current position, but at GOA since the early 90s. So I think I've been doing this even longer than she's been in the House. And as long as she's been in the House, she has been pushing for gun control. She's introduced gun control bills. But here's the interesting thing. I think this is important to note. I could be wrong about this, Tim, because somebody will fact check this, please. But I don't think any one of her bills that she has introduced has ever passed into law. So you got to understand, there's a flurry of anti-gun bills that have been introduced. Most of them have her name on them. A lot of people, and I've seen the traffic on the internet, this is the end of the world. And okay, if it were to pass, it would be really bad.
Bad, yeah.
But history shows more than, and by the way, history shows even when there's been complete anti-gun control here in Washington, still her bills weren't passing. There's probably a good chance that that's going to be what we're going to see again. I'm not saying that the left isn't going to come at us with anti-gun legislation. They will. It just probably won't have Sheila Jackson Lee's name on it.
So in other words, you're going to see a whole bunch of stuff being talked about right now, a bunch of things being proposed. But that doesn't mean that it presents a danger at this point. We can't get, we can't freak out every time one of these proposed bills gets proposed. We have to wait for it to go through committee. If it makes it out to committee onto the floor for a vote, now we have something to be concerned with. And what I want to caution people against is constantly being on edge, listening to people talking about all these proposed gun laws that haven't even been out of committee yet, haven't even gone to committee yet, and
Right.
getting all worked up about them. And what we fall into is the boy that cries wolf too many times. And that
Right.
syndrome of where people just become tired and weary of like, oh man, you guys said this law was going to happen. It didn't happen. And you become apathetic. And that's when one of those laws slip through and bite you. So I think the message in this video that Eric and I agree upon is don't be overly optimistic, but don't be overly pessimistic, and be vigilant. Don't get wrapped up in every single anti-gun law you see being discussed in Washington, because not every single one of them is really presenting a danger at that point. And it's important that you go to GOA's website and sign up just for the email lists. I would prefer you become a member. I'm a Patriot member. I donate every month. But even if you can't do that, if you can't afford to do that, you can sign up for their email list, and they don't bombard you with spam and stuff saying, give us millions of dollars and bring up every little gun law that's being talked about. They're going to give you information that's relevant and is important. And then you can share that information on your own social media pages with your friends and things like that, and then also become politically active. So it's really important that we focus on those things that truly have a chance of getting out of committee to a floor vote, and then do everything we can, all hands on deck, to make those phone calls, send those emails, show up at peaceful rallies, things like that, to make our voices heard, because we have been extremely successful in situations like this in the past, and we can do it again. But we have to be vigilant and be intelligent about our actions, and just be relentless. And when, GOA says this is a danger, this is something we need to be concerned with, please take action and urge others to do the same.
I really appreciate you saying that, Tim, because we really try to limit, we look at it as, when we're mobilizing our activists and our members, we're marching them up the hill for a battle. Yeah. And, you mentioned it, you don't want to be in the position where you're crying wolf all the time. We don't want to keep marching people up the hill for a battle it never happens. And so we're very careful to be having our members and activists taking action on things that are really have a chance of moving or have already started moving, as opposed to, Beto O'Rourke, hell yes, I'm going to take your guns. Well, okay, we need to hear. So, anybody who thinks that there's no effort in D.C. to come after your guns, I just have two words for you: Beto O'Rourke. Just remember that. Right. But that doesn't mean that, just because he says that, oh my goodness, tomorrow stormtroopers show up at your door. I mean, like you said, there's a long process. Bills have to be introduced, and then they go to committee. Then they're passed out of committee, and then they got to be considered on the floor. And it may die on the floor. It may pass out of the first chamber, and then it's got to start over again in the other one. And a lot of this is basic, civics class type of thing. But you're absolutely right. People can almost get overly pessimistic and scared with what's going on. So I appreciate that caution you're giving in. And I just want to say too, thank you, Tim. You mentioned, your support for GOA, and then I'm seeing in the chat a lot of people saying that they've recently joined Gun Owners America, and we tremendously appreciate that, because obviously the more members we have, the louder voice we're going to have in Washington, D.C. and all the state capitals around the country. So that's absolutely crucial. So I just want to thank everybody for that.
Yeah, guys, and I want to stress that, GOA has a long 40-plus year history of being pro-Second Amendment to the point of where I'm actually in agreement with them, I think, on just about every point. They do believe that the NFA is illegal. They do believe that, firearm owner registration and paying taxes to exercise your rights, they believe all that stuff is illegal and unconstitutional. And in an ideal world, if they had billions of dollars to work with and everything else, they could work to get those laws repealed. But we have to work very slowly through the courts, and we have to work very slowly by lobbying politicians. And every several years, politicians change. And it's a long, laborious process, and there's certain goals that we would like to achieve, but people say, well, why don't you repeal the NFA? Because that's going to take a long time. And this is another reason why it's important that we be politically vigilant, is because it's easier to stop a bill from becoming law than, once it becomes a law, repealing that bill and that law. Right. It almost never happens. And so it's really, really critical that you guys stay politically motivated. And then when GOA says, "Hey guys, this bill definitely presents a clear and present danger," please act, that you do that. And we'll try to keep that going for you guys. If there's something that pops up on the radar, I'll reach out to my friends at GOA. Eric, it's always awesome to have you on here. Other times we'll have other folks from GOA jump on, but we'll get that information to you guys. And I'm committed to doing that while we face these threats. Eric, I wanted to talk about something else that's really important. So, a lot of the representatives that are in Congress are my age or older. So that means they remember what happened in 1994 when President Clinton and Joe Biden had a part in that. Obviously, he was in the Senate when the 1994 crime bill was passed, and that included the air quotes assault weapon ban. And what happened immediately after that was there was a big turnover in the midterms. A lot of politicians lost their jobs because they supported that bad legislation. And it's been a few decades since that, but it's still fresh in the minds of, the longest serving representatives. Now, some of the freshmen may not remember that, but certainly the power brokers do remember that. And we need to remind them of that as we move forward and we face these challenges. When we contact them, just remind them of what happened in 1994, because you go too far and you upset our base, you will pay a heavy political price. Now, there's some of them that would be willing to sacrifice their position in Congress just to get that law passed. But there are other people that I know that you can reach out to when you're working on the Hill that will be receptive. I'm sure you guys have lists of anti-gunners or politicians that tend to lean towards the anti-gun side of the spectrum that you can apply pressure to if you have enough backing and enough support on your end that you can actually sway. So when we get to talking about the thin majority that these anti-gunners hold, especially in the Senate, literally one vote, all you have to do is get to one anti-gunner that's on the fence, and we can stop that in the Senate as well. Again, not all doom and gloom. Is it ideal where we sit right now? No, but that does not mean we don't have options and that we can't stop these things when they present themselves. What are your thoughts?
Absolutely. I'm just thinking of one example like that in the Senate is Joe Manchin of West Virginia. He's certainly not as leftist as the rest of his party. He's not as pro-gun as you and I are, Tim. He, of course, was co-author of the famous Manchin-Toomey universal background checks legislation that we opposed and that we helped kill back in 2013. At the same time, he's one of the key ones that we've been rallying and mobilizing people to contact his office, and because he's, quite frankly, one of the leaders on this "don't mess with the filibuster" movement. So, right now, we're very glad he's there for that very purpose. I know there'll be other things that we'll be disagreeing with him on, but as long as we have that filibuster, everything that you were just saying, we have a very good chance, as long as we stay very active, very loud, we have a very good chance of repeating history and defeating, just like we did in 2013, all the gun control coming down the pike, or let's say most of the gun control coming down the pike.
And ideally, we just have to get to midterms. There's a chance that we can change the makeup of Congress and the Senate. Again, the anti-gun forces hold the thinnest of majorities in both chambers, and if we can just get through these 2 years and potentially get more pro-gun allies seated in the midterms, then the game changes tremendously. Doesn't mean we can go to sleep. I hate the fact that when Republicans hold all the power, people seem to think that, your Second Amendment rights are safe. And I've said this many times before. The Republicans have done as much damage to our Second Amendment rights as any other group in the United States. And that's because I think that gun owners tend to go to sleep when Republicans have power. They think that by default, they're going to protect their Second Amendment rights. Ronald Reagan, one of the Republicans that people idolized the most, gave us the 86 machine gun ban. You had President Bush 41 that gave us the 89 import ban. President Bush 43 said that if an assault weapons ban passed his desk, he would have signed it. So you can't just assume, based upon party, that you have friends in the halls of Congress, friends being friends of the Second Amendment. We have to remain vigilant, and we can't assume that any one party is going to protect our rights. We have to always remain politically active. Because so you go ahead,
Tim. People who are newer subscribers to your channel may not know or may not remember that you joined us in a legal challenge to the ATF's ban of the bump stock ban under the Trump administration. So that's a perfect example right there where both whether that they're coming from the Republican or the Democrat banner, we have to be vigilant. And apathy is really how we lose our rights. If we become apathetic and just throw up our hands and say, well, there's nothing we can do. We're in the middle of football season. I hope you don't mind a football analogy.
Go ahead.
It really stuck with me a few years back, when Seattle was losing at the halftime against the Packers in the playoffs, and it was 16-0 at the half, and the Seahawks had committed 4 turnovers. They were playing terribly, and they came out in the second half. It was a totally new game. They came back and they won in overtime. And I remember the commentators at the time talking about the character of those players and the team, and I apologize to any Packers fans who may be listening. That's probably a very sore subject, especially after this past weekend. But just mentioning how it took character not to focus on the turnovers, not to say all hope is lost, but they came out and they played their heart out. And I think you're absolutely right, Tim, that there is a sense where some just want to throw in the towel, and what they're missing is that there is still so much that we have going in our favor. I mean, for example, for the first time in probably a long time, I think we have a pro-gun majority on the Supreme Court. And for all the what we just said about Trump, one good thing he did for us was give us 3 pro-gun Supreme Court judges, and he put almost 300 judges in the federal courts. I mean, we still have the states. Most of the states are controlled by pro-freedom people, and right now they're getting very busy in introducing Second Amendment Preservation Acts, which Gun Owners of America is heartily helping that effort. If you live in one of those states, you're going to be seeing alerts from us, getting your state legislators to support this legislation. We still have juries that can veto bad laws. So in many, many ways, we have a lot of things working for us. I mean, and just the fact, let's not forget, right at the election or the day after the election, you know who even the mainstream media was saying was the big loser in the election? We kind of tend to forget about this because we've been so focused on the presidency and even what happened in Georgia. But everybody in the media was saying Michael Bloomberg was the biggest loser. He spent millions upon millions of dollars to turn legislatures from Texas, Iowa, Minnesota, and he failed. In fact, the pro-freedom forces grew in those states, and GOA was very active in those states. One of the things I was particularly happy, one of my good friends in North Carolina, Mark Robinson, became lieutenant governor. And here, Bloomberg's Everytown spent almost $10 million to defeat him. I mean, in just one race, $10 million. And yet they didn't defeat him. They weren't able to defeat the pro-gun ballot measure in Montana. I mean, so we're talking all over the country, not to mention the House of Representatives at the federal level, where we increased our numbers, including some real diehard gals like Lauren Boebert and Marjorie Taylor Greene. So a lot of good things are happening. And so, it's just to anybody who's, kind of faint-hearted and feeling like you want to throw in the towel, believe me, there's a lot of good happening, and we just need to stay active and stay loud. And as Tim is saying, give it 2 years. We can have a big change in 2 years.
Well, you brought up Texas, and I had a super chat from Peter, who's a longtime supporter of the channel. Peter, thank you for your super chat. And we've had several others. I'm popping them up on the screen so you can't see them. But it says, Eric, this is addressed to you. What do you think of all the pro-gun bills pre-filed in Texas this year?
We have a lot of really good bills. In fact, I was just today talking with our Texas State Director, Rachel Malone. She has been doing a bang-up job in the state of Texas, rallying support, meeting with legislators, mobilizing activists. And she was saying for the first time in years, really, we're getting traction on some of these really good bills like a constitutional carry, and they don't call it Second Amendment Preservation Act, but that's basically what it is. These type of bills, we're seeing them introduced in both chambers, and they're going to be getting hearings and things like that. So there's a lot of good activity happening. I mean, I know there's anti-gun legislation too, but I think we stand a really good chance to move bills further than pro-gun bills further than we've ever seen before.
So let's quickly talk about states, because I think this is important. We've discussed this in other streams, but let's talk about it here a little bit. So one thing that we saw during the Obama years, when we were constantly under the threat of new anti-gun laws being passed, we saw states step forward and pass laws that basically said, if you go past this line, if you do this, if you enact any more restrictive laws at the federal level, we're not going to allow you to enforce those laws in our states. That surge for states' rights seemed to have petered out for the 4 years under Trump, which I wish it would have continued, because the states need to reassert their own rights. So that's something I think it's important that we urge the viewers to do, is to be not just worried about federal issues and dealing with federal representatives, but please focus on your state legislatures and your state representatives, because the states have a tremendous amount of power if they seek to reclaim it. Much of it's been usurped by the federal government, but it's not in stone. The states can take back their rights, and the states can protect their citizens. So if you live in a pro-2A friendly state, I think it's important that you work with local chapters. One of the things that we've done here in Indiana, based upon what was done with the Virginia Citizens Defense League, they helped us mirror that. And I sit on the board of the Indiana Citizens Defense League, which we've spoken about that, and we're going to work together with information going forward with GOA. But it's important that other people do that. That there's a good chance that your state may already have a similar organization, but if it doesn't, we'll help you set that up. Because it's important that we not just focus on those federal issues, but we focus on those state issues. And here, the Indiana Citizens Defense League is growing, and we're going to be pushing more and more for Indiana to push back against federal legislation and to declare our state as a 2A sanctuary, which is what we used to call them when it was going on initially. What are your thoughts on that, Eric?
Well, for starters, we'd like to see constitutional carry in Indiana. I know there's a bill there, and so we look forward to pushing that, helping push that across the finish line. But you're absolutely right. Just one additional comment I would say to what was happening during the Trump years. You're right that the states, I don't think we got any new states passing Second Amendment preservation acts. However, at the local level, it went crazy. And in fact, if people want to see an example of the types of things that were going on in draft legislation that people can use in their locality, if you go to gunownersaction.org/SASO for Second Amendment Sanctuary Ordinance. So gunownersaction.org/SASO. You can get draft legislation for your localities. And what you'll see is, as of at some point last year, we had over 1,100 localities around the country that had passed laws saying we will not help higher authorities, either at the state level or at the federal level. We will not help them enforce gun control. And some of the more bolder localities even have penalties. Our draft legislation actually has penalties. So, we will, anything from fines to imprisonment if you try to enforce gun control within the borders of the localities. But this kind of thing, really it's embedded in our history, Tim. I mean, some people bristle with that because the way they see that concept's been abused, let's say with immigration, but honestly, this is something that ever since the days of our founding fathers, we've seen this, and let's not forget. I mean, when the Fugitive Slave Act was passed, it was the northern states that were passing laws like this, saying we're not going to help you apprehend escaped slaves, and if you do, and you try to, and you bring it to trial in our state. We're passing personal liberty laws, which favor the liberty of the escapee, and basically making it illegal to put people that were trying to help, in the Underground Railroad, making it illegal to punish them. Yeah. And so this is something that we have through our history, but the key to remember is it's not just an issue where if I don't like something the federal government is doing, we'll get the states to, say we're not going to follow it. It has to be a constitutional issue, and that's really what we're facing here. I mean, the Second Amendment says that the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And so with these infringements that we're seeing, the states are absolutely in the right to say we're not going to help the feds enforce these infringements within our localities.
Yep, I agree, and we that's one of the reasons why we established the Indiana Citizens Defense League, was to bolster the efforts here in our state to pass those 2A sanctuaries at the county level. And again, please swing by the GOA's website, and you can get draft legislation that you can take to your county commissioners, and you can present this and push for it, organize. Some people have made comments in saying, why should I support any of these gun rights groups? That I live in an anti-gun state, and it's just wasted money. You're not getting anything done at the federal level. That's complete. That's just wrong thinking. And also, yes, support groups like GOA, but also by sending a check to GOA, that's not where your responsibility and duty to protect the Second Amendment ends. Get politically active locally. If you don't have something similar to an Indiana Citizens Defense League, create one. And the information you need to do it is right there on GOA's website, and how you can bring up draft legislation at the county commissioners meetings and local governments where you can push for 2A sanctuary cities. There's so much we can do as individuals that we can do to organize. We can't always look to other people to lead us. Become a leader yourself, and we'll help you. I'll answer your emails and things like that, because it's important that we all become as politically active as possible. That's how we're going to defeat these things. Real quick, I wanted to answer a super chat. This guy, thank you for the super chat. NRA, friend or foe. I think they're better organizations to support. I support GOA, and that's because they have a long history of not bending whatsoever. They will fight against every gun control law because they believe, as I do, that all gun laws are unconstitutional, thus they're illegal and repugnant to the Constitution. So pick those groups that you support and do that based on the merits of their actions. Let's see. I'm going to throw up some super chats that we see coming in here really quick. Thank you guys for doing that. Trying to catch up. So let's talk about some of the stuff that's been introduced. Oh, by the way, Kurt, my partner in crime with the Indiana Citizens Defense League, is here. Thank you for the super chat, Kurt. I'll donate that back to Indiana Citizens Defense League. Can we talk a little bit about some of the stuff that's been proposed, because it's circulating the internet, just at a high level, some of the bills that are proposed, and what your threat assessment level is for each of those as I pop up some of these super chats from folks?
Sure. Well, I think, first of all, we should probably talk about the fact that the biggest threats that I would see would be things that Biden might try to do through executive action. And, on the one hand, I would hesitate to even broach this subject, except we've already seen what the left has tried in the past. So I'll just keep my comments to things that they've already tried and got pushed back on. But for example, banning pistol braces, which aren't registered or for which you haven't paid the NFA tax. Banning 80% lower receivers, banning green tip ammunition. Remember that under the Obama administration. I could see those three things being the tip of the spear. And it's not to say that, we're not just going to, believe me, we're not going to roll over with the pistol braces when it happened under the Trump administration. We sent a letter to the Hill encouraging them to take action on this and to submit comments. Well, as a result of that letter that we sent to the Hill, that prompted 90 representatives to combine on a letter to the ATF, and they ultimately ended up withdrawing it. Now, I don't expect that that's going to go away forever, but that was a significant temporary victory there. Same thing with polymer 80. We're still actually preparing a case on that. And the green tip ammunition, if you remember, that was another case where just thousands and thousands of people were submitting comments. There were congressmen submitting comments. Gun Owners of America and other gun groups were heavily involved in that. Yep. And it was encouraging to see them back off on that. So I do think that, we're obviously going to be seeing things like that. I mean, Biden's also apparently he's given commissioned the FBI to study, loopholes in the gun background check system. And I don't know if that's in preparation for an executive order or for something to give to Congress. I mean, we'll have to wait and see. But, these are obviously the things that we're going to be facing from a Biden presidency.
Yeah, and I think, a lot of the stuff that you just said there, Eric, is critical. Guys, those are perfect examples of where we have been successful politically. To all of those out there that are naysayers saying that it's a waste of time, waste of money, waste of effort to be politically active or to support groups like GOA, you just got a breakdown of just most recent actions. And no, nothing is permanent. When we actually got the ATF to withdraw their letter on braces, is that permanent? No, there's going to be continued threats. Freedom isn't free, and you're going to have to fight every single day for it. You can't just go, I won freedom today. Let's go to, go party. It's over. We win. It doesn't work that way. There are always going to be those out there that seek to strip us of our liberties. And so we're going to have to remain vigilant. The point being is that we can win using the tools that our founding fathers gave to us. And the notion that it's a waste of time or that it's just a futile effort is patently false, and we can demonstrate that over and over again. We have a super chat that says he's from Fort Wayne. How you doing, man? He wants to join Indiana Citizens Defense League. Yes, please look for Indiana Citizens Defense League on Facebook. We're also in the process of fine-tuning the website because, as we all know, Facebook is in purge mode, and they're, I've gotten messages from folks that were admins for one of the Open Carry Texas groups. We've seen Truth About Guns have their Facebook page pulled. We saw In Range TV and Mr. Guns and Gear goes up and down. It's very real. There's a very real possibility that the Indiana Citizens Defense League Facebook page may get pulled at some point. So we will have a URL up, which we will share when it's finished on the Indiana Citizens Defense League Facebook page. So yeah, we'd love to have you, man, and we will have some local meetings, and hopefully I'll have a chance to meet you in person. So we know that executive orders are a potential threat, a big potential threat. And, if you take a look at what has been done by, Republican and Democratic administrations in the past, with the stroke of a pen, they can shut off the importation of all firearms. They can shut off the importation of all ammunition. And it doesn't take an act of Congress to do that. Now, we can challenge that in the courts, and I'm sure GOA would. I'm glad to hear that you guys are working on a lawsuit with regards to the polymer 80s. And so people that say that you never do anything with the money, you do everything you possibly can with the money. I know that from being a party to the lawsuit with regards to the bump stock. But, before I get off into that subject, I wanted to ask if you could give us just a quick update, because a lot of folks think that the bump stock lawsuit that we're working on has been, is dead or has been dismissed. Can you just give a quick update as to where we currently stand with the lawsuit?
Absolutely. Sadly, there is no update from the last time we talked about it.
And this is important.
We were in the Court of Appeals. Appealing a district court decision before a 3-member panel of the Circuit Court of Appeals. And this is in the Sixth Circuit, which, includes Michigan and Ohio. And that was December of 2019.
Yep.
And I think it went really well. There was an anti-gun I want to call it a rag, a newspaper of sorts that was there covering it. And by their watching what the judges were saying in their body language, they actually thought that we won the day over the ATF. So, which is kind of the impression we had. Although you always have to be careful about judging those kind of things. But we thought that day went really well, and here it is over a year later, and we're still. And I recognize a lot of things got slowed down in court systems all around the country because of COVID and things like that. But it's just been a shame. I mean, here we are over a year still waiting. But all that to say, long answer to your question, it's still alive and active and kicking. And, we're still hoping for a good decision out of that circuit.
Here's what I think's interesting. And I'm speculating here, of course, and it's a dangerous thing to do, but hear me out. So I think some folks have gotten the idea that perhaps that, our court case was dead. That's because other court cases that were filed have been basically thrown out.
Right.
Our case has not. And it's really odd, yes, with COVID and all the other stuff going on, the slowdown of government, those actions still took place with the other court cases. Ours is still pending. And to me, that seems like a judge that is, I think that the judge may be nervous to rule in our favor. He knows what's right. He knows the argument is sound. He knows what the government did was unconstitutional, illegal, was gross overreach. But I just think there might be some reluctance there on the judge's part to be that one that says, yeah, bump stocks are legal. I mean, is that a possibility?
Tim, you're not trying to say that a judge would look at political issues and not just go by the law, are you?
Right? That never happens. It just certainly seems that way to me. Am I way off out there in left field?
No, you're not way off. In fact, what you just said there, I've said to people privately is exactly what my concern is too. I have no way to know that for sure.
Yeah.
It's just kind of knowing the nature of man and judges, and obviously they look around and they see what's going on too. So they're just as political many times as anybody else. So having said that, we can certainly hope for the best, and we keep adding to our arguments every time something happens in another court, which I forget the technical legal term for doing that. I mean, some attorney will put that in the chat. But
right.
Like I remember there was a judge in Nevada who ruled that he basically ruled that AR-15s under the bump stock ban could be considered automatic weapons. And we took that and we sent it over to the judges that we had appeared before. And we said, see, this is exactly what we were saying would happen. This is precisely the danger that we're facing here. So anyway, we've been sending things over like that. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I just have a gut feeling that the judge is just nervous to render the right decision. And
but and all that to say, though, I mean, here's basically our chief strategy. Even though we do get involved in the courts, Tim, and you know this, our primary strategy is affecting elections, working through the election process to get the right people elected, because they're the ones that pass the laws or don't pass the laws in the first place. It's going to be a lot. You said it earlier. It's a lot more expensive after the fact to try to beat it in court, and sometimes it's a crap roll of the dice. So we're trying to get the right people into office, because let's face it too, that they'll be, especially in the Senate, they'll be the ones who either confirm or deny judges from being appointed. So ultimately, that's our chief strategy. And, I truly believe we've saved millions of dollars by defeating legislation in the Congress that might have otherwise gotten passed and enacted, and that if we were just going a judicial, let's get it in the courts approach, it would have cost us millions of dollars and of course, that's when you're rolling the dice.
Yep.
So even though, we got to remain active in the courts, that's why, folks, I will tell you, our chief duty is mobilizing, getting people active, sounding off to your legislators, and then if they don't listen to you, we give them their pink slip in the next November.
Yep, and I think it's important we remind them of that, going back to our earlier conversation about 1994. Remind the Congress critters of the potential repercussions of their actions. So we have about 10 minutes left in the live stream. We're reaching the top of the hour. I just wanted to ask you, is there anything that's currently in committee? I'm not up to speed. I'm a couple weeks behind right now on 2A News. I'm trying to get caught up. Is there anything that's actually made it to committee yet that may be going to the floor for a vote? Or are we still kind of just in that early stage of the new administration and not a whole lot of movement yet? Yeah,
still in the early stages. In fact, last time I checked, the bills that have been the the anti-gun bills that have been introduced don't even have a text yet. It's
I've seen
just
that,
a
yeah.
description. So, when you look at Sheila Jackson Lee's, I mean, you see things like, licensing ammunition or hiring 200 more ATF agents, if we knew that they were going to be used to speed up, I mean, you and I want to get rid of the NFA, but as long as we have it, if it's going to be to speed up NFA approvals, that would be one thing. But that's not what those 200 ATF agents are going to be hired for.
They're going to be in enforcement, or they're going to be attorneys to go and
exactly.
try to find new ways to skirt the law. Misusing Chevron deference, which I also wanted to say, and maybe this is speculation, and for those of you watching, use DuckDuckGo. It's a search engine alternative to Google, and look up Chevron deference. And I always kind of wondered if our bump stock lawsuit, that might be the thing that's swirling around in the judge's mind. Could that be the case that actually brings that to the forefront and winds up before the SCOTUS? I don't know. I think about that.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, obviously whether agencies should have more or less deference in terms of how they interpret and apply rules. Yeah, I mean, that's, and quite frankly, that circuit court tends to be more conservative in not giving deference to agencies. Mm-hmm. And so that could be one of the problems. Actually, I think that is one of the roadblocks that ATF was hitting. But anyway, so yeah, I don't think there's anything in committee yet. I was actually kind of secretly hoping they would go through with this, ridiculous impeachment, because it would just take tons of their time, and that would mean that they're not hurting the rest of the country. I think the whole thing is a sham, and Rand Paul has been right on point in terms of things he's been saying. But anytime they get tied up, taking days doing something that in the end is going to fail, that's a good thing, because that means they're not passing gun control or other harmful. Yeah,
no action's better than the action that they take most of the time.
Right.
So we can just kind of hope that they all just kind of do nothing for the next 2 to 4 years, because nothing's better than action sometimes with these guys. All right, well, Eric, we're only about 8 minutes to the end of the broadcast, and I wanted to take a moment to thank everybody that tuned in. I definitely want to thank all of those that did the super chats and took part in the conversation here. What are some of the things that you'd like to leave the audience with? And I just want to let everybody know as well, please stay tuned for future State of the Second broadcasts like this, because as I said earlier in the stream, as things pop up, once they present a clear danger and GOA will assess that threat, they'll let me know, we'll schedule a stream, and then we'll get the information out to you folks so you can take action. Is there anything that you'd like to leave as some parting words of wisdom?
Well, I think just to sum up what we've been saying is, I hope this has been an encouragement to people. I know it's hard when you see Washington controlled by the forces that want to ram gun control down our throats, and they're gleeful about it. It is disheartening. But we're here to tell you there is tremendous hope. We have a strategy for being able to defeat this, and we've already started implementing that strategy. And so far, I mean, at least what what is today? January 27th. Is that the date today?
Yep, I think you're right. Yep, it is the 27th.
So as we are here, January 27th, I mean, we are looking good, in that we have a clear majority of senators that are saying we're not going to bail on the filibuster, and we're helping to drive that by, again, tens of thousands of people contacting their senators. So that's huge. That's important, and we're going to keep doing that. At the same time, we're going to be fighting at the state levels and getting those Second Amendment Preservation Acts passed. And so, I just, as we've been encouraging all along, please go to gunowners.org, sign up for our emails. They're totally free. We want to be able to get as much pressure on these legislators, because again, they're going to get pressure, and it's usually going to be, and, we didn't even talk about this, Tim, but we know next time there's a big shooting, that's when the media is at the best for doing their diabolical pressure tactics, and they're going to be pressing. We got to do something, And here in this big echo chamber inside the Beltway around Washington, D.C., that is a lot of pressure. And Gun Owners of America, so far, we've been able to successfully counter that pressure by mobilizing the grassroots. So we're going to continue to do that. And so I just, again, thank you to all of you who have joined GOA, those of you who are getting our email alerts, and quite frankly, who are subscribing to this channel. I encourage you to do that and to like it, because that is important for the algorithms, because we want to help get this word out.
Yep, share the video if you guys can. That's easy enough to do. Share it on Facebook and places like that while we all still have accounts. And please, guys, swing by the GOA website. It's gunowners.org. Check it out. Consider becoming a supporter. It's the least you can do, but I would also ask, beyond becoming a GOA member, please remember to be politically active. We won't go out there and make videos screaming wolf when there isn't truly a threat. We're not doing this to get attention or clicks. We're doing this to make sure that we can disseminate accurate information to motivate the base to get out and take political action when that time is. And right now it's time to be spinning up those email browsers or email clients, and getting those phone numbers on your desk and ready to dial, and be ready to take action, because it's not a matter of if, it's only a matter of when we face that first threat. And when that happens, Erich and GOA will be there to bring us that information, and we'll get that right out to you guys. So Erich, that's it from me. Would you like to say anything as we cut out?
Yeah, could I just a housekeeping item, and that you've been very generous in the past, Tim, in providing a link where your viewers can get a discount. Normally our membership is $25, but through the link that you've provided, people can get a discount membership, a full-fledged benefit membership at GOA. And so I just want to thank you for the fact that you've done that over the years. A lot of people have taken that opportunity to do that.
I'm really glad, and I want to thank our audience for doing that. It's amazing that you guys are so politically active. It's absolutely key, and it means a lot. All right, guys, I just posted up the last super chat. We're going to sign off. If you guys would like to support us here at the Military Arms Channel, a great way to do that is to become a Patreon supporter. There is a link in the video description down below. Give it a click, and we answer all private communications. You get early access to videos and things like that. Also, right here in the video browser you're watching, there's a little join button underneath the video browser, or video player, I should say. Click that join button, and you can support us right here on YouTube. And last but not least, guys, please swing by and check out coppercustom.com. Thank you for 13 years of support, and we'll talk to you soon. Erich, thank you so much, my friend, for carving out time. It means a lot.
You're welcome, my friend. Great to be here with you again. Thanks.
Okay. Same here. We'll talk to you soon.